I'm so layered up. Is that an option? Well, we're going to as you're already decided. Well, he wants to move it. Yeah, we even went to that's and I told him I was 10 years old. Well, at least it's not which is, I'm talking about our city.
Yeah, we made it.
Okay. All right. I'd like to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Village of Riverwoods. And as we stand to say the pledge this evening, I would ask that you think about the family and the legacy of the 39th President, Jimmy Carter. Please stand with me and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford.
Present.
Trustee Clayton.
Here.
Trustee Dickon.
Here.
Trustee Eastman.
Here.
Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson is absent. Trustee Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business is approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting of December 17th. Do I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Moving on to the Finance Director's report. Let us start with approval of the bills. May I have a motion for approval of the bills, please?
So moved.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Are there any questions? Comments regarding the bills as presented? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Our treasurer isn't with us this evening, but we will be facing some discussions with Northside Bank, who is now known as Advia. And I believe our finance director may have a comment on that. Maybe not.
No, I had my report. I didn't have any comment on Advia.
Thank you very much. Leading right into it. Sorry.
Oh, it's all right. I'm working, I have a few items for the report tonight. Still working on incorporating the final changes to the annual budget based on input from our finance workshop and a few other items that have come up since then. I should have a draft to share in February ahead of bringing the budget/appropriations ordinance for board approval in March. Now that we're in the new year, the initial work is starting for our 2024 audit. I have an initial kickoff meeting with Ed Tracy from Selden Fox to discuss items needed for field work this year. That meeting's on Monday. And this will be year one of our new 3-year engagement with their firm. As part of the prep work for this year's audit, we are also looking into a possible short engagement for some additional accounting help. The goal is to find someone to help with the various schedules and journal entries needed for the year-end process, which will help us complete the audit quicker and with improved findings in our management letter this year. There are also a couple of new GASB pronouncements that go into effect for this audit year as well. And an update on the $200,000 grant for water infrastructure I told the board about back in late November. Been working with GHA and we're finalizing the paperwork to sign off for our submittal to the state. And that's what I have for tonight.
Are there any questions for our director? Apologies for skipping over that, by the way. Are there any questions for our finance director? Seeing none, the treasurer is still not here. So Director of Community Services report. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things, actually. Number one, from Saunders Road, IDOT has finally given approval of the appraisals that were done to provide the necessary construction easements and to allow for additional volume to be created in the roadside ditches for stormwater runoff. Santa Cruz will be moving forward with the negotiations if they can get them completed, approved by this board, and then approved by IDOT by March 3rd. We will remain on the April letting. If that cannot occur, if we cannot get the negotiations approved and to this board by the end of the second meeting in February, we will be pushed back to the June letting. So they are moving forward with haste. The other item with regard to the FedLife building demo, WB Olson has been working on vetting the low bidder. They have reviewed the project with them and they will be approving them. We will be bringing that forward to this board for the next meeting for approval. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for our director? Okay, seeing none, moving on, our consultants report. Village attorney, please.
The intergovernmental agreement that we have with Lake County obligated us to convey or grant additional easements. We granted easements over the federal life property, or we will for stormwater and for right-of-way, but there are also about 8 or 9 other small snippets of land up and down Deerfield Road where the village had some small These are usually 5-foot strips. We have a strip all the way around the perimeter of Thorngate. Some of these areas are areas where the noise wall is going to be located. The county originally had proposed that we grant an easement, but we reason that since the noise wall is going to be there forever and we're not going to be able to put anything underneath the noise wall, we would rather just convey the property to the county and not have the liability or any other issue associated with it. So I've been working off and on the last 4 to 6 weeks on working out the terms of the conveyances of these various parcels, getting the descriptions of them correct, what they're for. And I think we'll be in a position, if not next meeting, at the meeting after that, to bring a resolution to the board in which the board authorizes the conveyance of these various parcels to the county. It would be in fulfillment of what we agreed to do in the intergovernmental agreement. It's part of what they need in order to complete their design process. And we agreed in our intergovernmental agreement not to take any compensation for any of those in light of the fact that the county was giving us a lot of consideration in the improvement on the Federal Life property and helping us acquire it. However, we did reserve the right to receive $45,000 in respect of one of those easements. I've had a few discussions with Meadow Lake representatives. This is an easement that interacts with the entrance to the Meadow Lake subdivision. Because of the widening of Deerfield Road, the signage and landscape feature for Meadow Lake has to be pushed back probably about 20 feet, maybe something like that. So the award that was recommended that the county pay for this was, by memory, $45,000. And in the intergovernmental agreement, we said, okay, we don't need compensation for the little snippets of land that go under a noise wall, but we should get compensation for this because we will have to spend money to have this facility relocated. So we've been in touch with Randy and with Meadow Lake a little bit, and we're just at the very outset of that. We'll get a landscape architect to do a sketch. We'll kind of figure out what has to be done. But that's just another item that we'll be working through in connection with the widening project on Deerfield Road. That's all I have.
Are there any questions for our village attorney? Okay, seeing none, moving on. Plan Commission report. Chairman Brightcoff, please.
It's on. Good evening, everyone. The Plan Commission met last night. We recommended approval of the plat of subdivision for 2930 and 2950 Duffy Lane with several conditions suggested by the village staff relating to woodlands, wetlands, utility easements, and other items. We also conducted a public hearing on a proposed zoning amendment to add the Plan Development Overlay District as a special district. The text amendment describes a plan development as a special use in the proposed plan development overlay district. The district is intended to foster the creation and address the potential impacts of a planned community that may include forms of multiple dwellings in addition to single-family dwellings. And that is it.
Are there any questions for our chair? That was a lot.
So because the Plan Commission recommended approval of what we've been calling the Residential Plan Development Ordinance, we'll also be bringing that back to the board for consideration probably at the next meeting, or because of all the absences, maybe we put it over till February. We don't seem to be behind the 8 ball yet on this one. And also, I guess I should have said that I have done a draft of the Affordable Housing Ordinance, and staff is looking at it right now. And then I think what we'll do is maybe provide a draft to the board, let everyone have a chance to read it, and maybe send me individual comments. And then we can bring back at least a trial version for everyone to look at a board meeting and have open discussion.
I suggest that you skip the next meeting for this plan unit development because there's only going to be a short board at night. Wait till we have a more full.
No, absolutely.
Attendance.
Absolutely.
It gives me a little more time anyway.
Yeah. second meeting in February could be really long, or we could, if March works for some items, we can move those. We'll try to adjust. Thank you very much. The Zoning Board of Appeals,
Mayor, they have
Druid?
not met since our last meeting here at the village board, so there is no report.
thank you. Police report. Chief?
I have no report tonight. I did not send any activity for the packet because it only would have included activity from January 1st through January 3rd. So I'll have activity at the next meeting.
DUIs?
We did actually have a DUI, but
It's the season.
it'll show up in the next meeting.
Well, I can't help it. Thank you. Thank you, Chief, and thank you for all your work, of course. Fire District, Chief Kruger is with us.
Same as Chief Daniel, really nothing to report. Happy New Year, everybody. And like Chief said, it's only the 6th, so nothing really exciting happened so far. But with the new fire station project, and looking forward to that, we're going to be very busy with that and other things. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your work as well. Information and comments from the president. I do have some comments, and because we have a little bit more time, because nobody else did, no. I do want to take a little look back here and maybe a little look forward. We did have some wonderful things happen in 2024. We completed putting together our professional and experienced management team, and that we've got our clerk, we've got our director of community services and our director of finance, and now we're all working together. And that's really, really important. The police department, we're fully staffed now, I believe, and they received the Illinois Law Enforcement Accreditation Program Award. And that's an important step too. And I think that plaque is out in the hallway. We addressed some Airbnb issues. We had reports from the Water Infrastructure and Stormwater Management Committee. Community events, we had some community events. We're starting to have more community events. Residents' Day with the RRA, the car show, the garage sale, and the grand opening of the play area. The Federal Life Building was sold, and the fire department stepping in and keeping their station in Riverwoods. The Sustainability and Land Use Committees were formed. The South Lake Mosquito Abatement District was under pressure, but now, fingers crossed, I think we're in good shape. And another proposal for the 37 acres fell through, although that's not really a highlight and not really unexpected, I guess, after all these years. But thinking forward, thinking about next year, we're going to have 2 new trustees joining the board, and that's probably a good time to refresh the 2015 residents survey. For those of you who have been here more than 10 years, that was a very all-encompassing survey that gave rise to the development of a strategic plan. And that strategic plan had 5 goals. Strategic goals: financial stability, land use, woodlands and ecology, village infrastructure and services, and village communications. And a lot of our 2024 activities fell into those categories, but we haven't been specifically moving forward on a strategic plan. So maybe when we have a new board in place and we get some of these other things settled out, might be a good time to revisit those things. But immediately, we are facing the development of the Walters Kluwer property. We understand there are discussions ongoing right now. And thinking about that, we've got a couple of themes: development and infrastructure for 2025. Again, it looks like the Walters Kluwer property may be developed in the coming year or so. More than likely, it will be a residential development. You heard a little bit about the residential plan development ordinance is being worked on and coming forward, as well as the affordable housing ordinance. This is going to be quite an opportunity for our village, and this development deserves careful, thoughtful study, considering the obvious and sometimes not so obvious impacts. We see a number of changes in our housing stock. New houses, remodeling, and addition of older homes are taking place. While there are larger lots, there are now larger homes. So neighbors are closer. A reminder that what you do on your property may well have an effect on your neighbors, whether it's drainage, sight lines, or outdoor lighting. The village staff does its best to assist in understanding enforcement of our codes for the quiet enjoyment of every resident's property. But under development, I would also list development of community. We have a diverse community in terms of demographics and geography. We're a series of neighborhoods that look different from each other. Some are heavily wooded, narrow roadways. Some have wider roads with curbs from lakesides to golf courses. A third of our village remains on private wells. The census indicated a larger proportion of our population falls within the a senior category, but we do have anecdotal evidence that we've got to shift toward younger families. So how we come together for the common good will define our community moving forward. The efforts of the RRA and the RPC to create community events have increased and is succeeding in bringing residents together. We're having more events and bigger turnouts, which is wonderful. The village is partnering with those resident groups to support the development of community. We are working with individual residents to start more senior services, beginning with a game day at Village Hall, which you'll hear more about during the committee reports. We are speaking with the Vernon Township Library, exploring the ability to expand their boundaries to include all of Riverwoods. The next year, I would hope, would bring more and more opportunities for us to come together as one community. Again, I'll be asking that we repeat that 2015 survey for guidance on issues, preferences, desires, and so forth. We may well be in a transition period. It would seem to me that a broader view could provide the guidance we need to move into the future. On infrastructure, I hope to review the Stormwater Management Project and the water report from the Water Infrastructure Committee. The Stormwater Project still needs a focused, practical, financially feasible proposal for board consideration. As for water infrastructure, the largest hurdle here is the financial hurdle. Should, for whatever reason, those on private wells wish to connect, at this point, most simply cannot. There is no central water main structure reachable by the entire village. We need to consider the ability to supply municipal water in the future. Importantly, and perhaps most important, the current ability to protect homes from fire continues to be limited. No water main, no fire hydrant. Water main infrastructure deserves another review for the benefit and reputation of our entire community. So let's keep moving forward and build on our history rather than repeat it. We have a professional staff in place and we're ready, perhaps a bit overwhelmed at times, but nevertheless, we're ready to move forward. And those are my comments on that. We have 4 tentative workshop schedule. I got 1 response when I asked for topics for the workshops. We agreed to have 4 workshops next year, and those would be in February, May, and August. The first one in February is being dedicated to privatizing public roadways, the public-private discussion. In May might be a good time to talk about governance. August, possible topics include sustainability, land use, and in October, that's our typical time to hear about budget and finance. So, having said that, looking forward, looking out to a good-sized crowd. You know, glad to see the Romanellis are back. Is there anybody wishing to address the board on topics other than what's on the agenda? Randy?
We got both Randys.
2 Randys. Oh, 2 Randys. Do you want to talk? Yeah, okay.
I just have a question in regard to what you were talking about with the Walter Kluwer property.
Sure.
So, and correct me if I don't understand it correctly, but if the tax base that we're going to lose, obviously by them going out, we're going to lose it regardless of when they leave. If you're going to let like a multifamily development or whatever go in there, and I know somebody's got to have pushed numbers, the tax base that we're losing, if in fact they develop this, are we going to equal what we have? And more importantly, even if we equal the tax base, if we go over a certain amount of people, then that pushes us into the pension type.
You've got, yeah, there are 2 questions there. First is the tax, and I don't, he probably has an answer. Let me get to the second one.
Okay.
That's 5,000. That's the number, 5,000 population. And Director Vasquez and I have been talking with an actuarial firm and modeling what would happen if we did that. And background, that means that our officers would need to then be members of what's referred to as the Downstate Police Pension Fund, which is more expensive. And the switch carries with it some unfunded liability. So that is what we've been looking at. We should be okay considering, what might go in there. And then we talk about density with the Plan Commission and so forth. So I think we should be fine there. It's the one that is looming out there, and who knows, is Discover. So believe me, we're looking at that. That is the big number. That's the big number. And we are very aware of that. So if I cut you off before, but please, Attorney.
I think I'd have to go back and look to see how the present office building is assessed, but, bear in mind that it's underutilized and the office market is not really very good. So you view that against the potential new assessed value from a development, it may not be a loss.
I just think as you look at it and it says, oh, we're developing this, everybody's like, great, but then are we worse off? I guess that's what I'm saying. If it pushes us above that threshold of where we need to be.
Yeah, we're not worried about that with that 5,000 with that particular, if it comes in where we think it might, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the
As far
answer
as the
is.
property
I just want
tax,
to, and I'm sure you looked at it, and I'm just wondering if anybody pushed like a quick group of numbers and say, where do you think we'd be? Are we going to be under? Are we going to be over where we should be?
Well, if we had 140 units on the Wolters Kluwer and a population of 2.5 per unit, you're not going to get over 5,000.
Okay. What are we around 35 now?
3,700.
3,500,
3,700.
Okay.
Just
last sentence.
Yeah. So we do push those numbers around.
Yeah, I'm sure you, okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, there's a second. Randy was going next. And then, Christy, yeah.
Hi, Christy Sherman. Happy New Year. Is there any way we can work on automating? Like I wanted to pay the alarm and re-register. Is there any way of us automating that or working on automating that so we can pay online and stuff like that?
Director Vasquez.
Yes, our accounting software we use, we just started using at the beginning of 2023, is offering a new product we learned about in the fall that essentially would allow for more items beyond the utility bills to be able to be paid online. So it is something, we learned about it at a user conference in late October. We've already had a follow-up call with their sales group, and we're looking further into what the potential next steps would be with trying to move forward with something like that. The benefit of using their product as opposed to a different third party is you kind of cut out the middleman in terms of if permits and other types of payables are created in our software already and payments received through their same software, that it would be a more seamless transition in terms of reconciliations. So there is a product that we think could help move forward in that direction, and we are looking into it.
Okay, is it like a this year thing maybe? And just because we're already like in 2025 and anywhere we go, you can do stuff online. So I just would like to, it would just.
We were not starting in a good place. So the move to do everything you want to, that is possible, takes us a little longer to make sure that we're linking up the old stuff.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Right, great.
Yeah, we weren't starting where everybody else is.
Okay. And good work with the team.
Pardon me?
With all the hiring.
Oh, yes, that's the answer right there.
Very exciting. Thank you.
Randy, number 2.
Claire. Good evening, Randy Merrill, RPC. Hey, I do want to ask you a question. Hey, topic of utility bills. On the water bill, it says something about auto pay. That to me means that every month the payment or quarterly, it's deducted automatically. That I haven't been able to figure out how to set that up.
Okay, if you reach out to me, we can talk about how we can get you set up on that.
Got it. Wanted to let you know, we sent out a survey, a questionnaire to all the residents regarding cost share program. The responses have been in the month of December quite lackluster, whether it be the fact that, as we were talking about, that the questionnaire might not have been obviously stated inside of the newsletter, maybe other things were in there and therefore it really wasn't easily accessible. So we decided to postpone the cost share forum. Now, when I did the newsletter, I did have a place for RSVPs. So I would assume if somebody was interested, they would RSVP. But just in case some people put it on their calendar, I'm going to have Dana put it on the e-sign. Okay. And I'm also putting out hopefully today, just an email from RPC about the questionnaire, just saying, and it says basically, we're listening, but we don't hear you. Please, this is important. We'd like your feedback on this. Additionally, I know that I had requested potentially to get a list of the HOA contacts so that I could ask them if they felt it was appropriate to directly disperse this questionnaire to the residents based on their email list. But of course, for security reasons, I understand that that couldn't be shared with me. But we can network within, our own community and other volunteers that we have and just see if those can be, submitted to, again, the HOA directors, and that way it's just the questionnaire. I know, thank you, Catherine Romanelli. I got some nice responses. She sent that out to Thorngate, and we got 14 responses in a couple hours. So it was very worthwhile. So again, we're going to postpone the forum until we have sufficient responses to make this a worthwhile presentation. You agree? Just checking what you.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on. New business. First item of business is approval of a payment for the HVAC control repair services to Emmy Bach in the amount of $24,700. Director Wood, can you please lead us through that?
Certainly, Mayor. So this item is a follow-up to the discussion that was held on the December 3rd, or during the December 3rd board meeting regarding the deficiencies that we have within the HVAC system here at Village Hall. We have severe problems with controlling temperatures from room to room. Even if tonight somebody walked into the kitchen here and then walked over to the restroom on the other end of the building, you'd probably find at least a 20-degree differential in temperature. So at that meeting, though the board did approve ordering of parts, which Emmy Bach has done, at least they told me they have, you requested a proposal to be brought forth from them. Their estimate was somewhere between 18 and 24,000. Their proposal, which is attached, came in at 24,700. So they fairly well hit the mark on their estimate. And we are recommending or requesting an approval of their proposal in the amount of 24,700 so that we can switch over what is an automated system, which is not functioning the way we need it, to a system where there will be individual controls at least 16 different thermostats within this building to have individual control over temperature. Where one wants heat and the other one wants cold, that'll still be available to do, so we can raise and lower temperatures on an individual basis on a room by room. So again, we're requesting an approval of the proposal in the amount of $24,700. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
And I understand you have had a conversation with Trustee Jamerson.
Yes, I
regarding
have.
this.
He was fine with the proposal. He has some questions on it, and he was supportive of the proposal.
Are there any questions for Director Wood? May I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Sorry, who made the motion?
Trustee Clayton. Okay, if there's no further discussion then, roll call.
Trustee Eastman.
Aye.
Trustee Hollander.
Aye.
Trustee Smith.
Aye.
Trustee Clayton.
Aye.
Trustee Dickon.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
We seem to have had a whole series of problems with regard to the heating system.
Oh,
here
yeah.
For some period of time. We've also had problems with the acoustics in the room and other features of the
With the,
building.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
I'm sorry, the acoustics in the room
Yes,
and so on. It's good. That was good.
good catch.
You
Was that
got
a
me.
good catch?
You got me.
Yeah. There was,
So
yes.
do we have any recourse against any of the contractors or the architect with regard to all these extra costs that we've incurred?
I think the time for the HVAC system is well past. As far as the other, I sincerely doubt it. You can ask counsel. I know that Director Vasquez has been in touch with our architect and who are the people that did the acoustic measurements?
The acoustical engineer, one item to note about the room itself is, after speaking with the architect, my understanding is that some of the decisions made in terms of, the stone and the higher ceilings was, at one point in time, there were discussions about using the room for other types of purposes that played a factor into how they designed the room, which, while it looks really, really nice, some of those decisions unfortunately impacted the acoustics, the higher ceilings, the stone, the hard surfaces that sound reverberates off of. So that I know we've been talking with the called sound design. Some of the solutions presented, at least in that aspect, are more centered around bringing in softer surfaces that can help absorb some of the sound so you don't get all the reverberation. But I just wanted to add 2 cents on that.
We've gone at it a couple of times. This will be our second go-round with having an acoustic specialist in. And there's been a proposal and the evaluation of that proposal. So you'll hear more about that in the coming months. But no, it's our fault, I think, is what we're really getting back to. Yeah. Okay, as we move on to old business, the item of old business is an approval of an ordinance amending provisions regulating the burning of landscape waste, and it's listed as second reading and approval. I would like to propose that we put this over, unless someone objects, that we put this over in order to hear the many resident comments that we've been seeing via email. A resident actually came in this morning and asked to speak with me. He had a similar problem. He does not live in the immediate area. He lives off of Port Wine, north of Deerfield Road. So it's just not one area that is experiencing this discomfort. And if we are to find a compromise, I think we probably need a little bit more time to work on that. We went from no limitations to a proposal that was perhaps a bit draconian. So there might be something in the middle that would be helpful, not only in terms of people's quiet enjoyment of their own property, but in terms of enforcement, making it clear that when our officers go to enforce these things, there is no question about if it's too big, too small, what they're burning, those kinds of things. So again, understanding, of course, that many of the trustees would like to be present for this particular discussion. If you agree to put it over, we will not be taking this up again until late February, so that all trustees who are involved and have indicated an interest would be present. If we do put it over, it simply means that the ordinance as it exists will continue until we change it. So again, unless you would unless there are any objections to putting this over. Trustee Hollander?
I'm not sure I quite understand. We have a full board here except for one. Has Trustee Jamerson asked us to delay this?
No, he has not. No, he has
And
not.
then why are we delaying then another month? This would be the fourth time it's on the agenda. What is the reason we would put it over for a month? I'm not quite clear.
To discuss a more palatable compromise between our residents who have shown up and who have believed that they've been and know that they've been very impacted by this, and to discuss things like fire hazard as well as the health hazards that are associated, and perhaps come up with limitations that everyone can live with.
I suggest we vote on whether or not we put it over.
I don't think there needs to be a vote. You just need to agree.
Someone makes a motion to postpone the second.
Okay, yeah.
In fact, you would like the matter to be called tonight unless someone makes a motion to postpone.
Yeah, I think we pretty much have gotten a lot of information already, and unless there's new information that hasn't been presented to us that would help inform a decision or change our minds, I'd like to hear it tonight, but if there's new information or something that would, better inform us, then I'm certainly willing to put it over for a month, but I'm not quite clear on what is that we're waiting for.
We have residents here tonight. Would you want to at least hear them before you
absolutely.
vote? Okay.
Yeah, no, I definitely would.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that, and then I haven't seen all of the emails that have come in. I was told there were a bunch of emails that had come in from residents, so. You want to take the resident?
If those people in attendance would like to address the board on this topic.
Good evening. I think that works, right? All right, great. So my name is Meg Redlewski. Meg Redlewski, R-E-T-E-L-E-W, sorry. Sure. M-A-G-R-E-T-E-L-E-W-S-K-I. Sure. Thank you. So I just want to mention one thing, that one of the reasons I think it'd be important to consider multiple points of view, we as residents that have been heavily impacted by the situation, and there was over 25 of us that have signed the original petition. Not most of us, in fact, couldn't be here tonight, and multiple people have expressed the concern that their voices are not being heard, which is why I think we either the board will thoroughly review all the emails along with my summary that I'm about to present to consider it in context of the decision that you are about to vote on. So I would like to share a statement, if that's okay.
Please.
To our dismay, the progress our community made toward limiting outdoor burning last year was entirely undone in a single board meeting on December 17th. Yes, to your point, Trustee, this is the fourth time that this has been discussed, and I understand that it's an important and contentious decision, but it impacts our lives. In fact, there was a complete reversal, eliminating most restrictions on burning. That meeting was supposed to include a simple reading of the proposed ordinances with no need for residents' presence because several of us had conflicts around the holidays. Instead, all the progress was scrapped by the board. Over 25 residents signed the original petition requesting limiting on outdoor burning, expressing serious concerns about health and safety, including significant risks such as cancer, respiratory and cardiovascular issues, allergies, and autoimmune diseases. I included scientific references in the petition to substantiate these concerns. Since late August, we have attended several meetings, addressed the board directly, and submitted at least 20 emails detailing all concerns. We understand that the fire department opposes burning due to the high risk of fire spread and the insufficient number of fire hydrants in the area. Yet, we feel our voices have not been heard. Isn't one of the board's key responsibilities to represent the community's concern and act in its best interest? According to the EPA, leaf and wood smoke contain carcinogenic chemicals like benzene, formaldehyde, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. Exposure to these substances increase the risk of lung cancer and other serious health conditions like asthma. The issue of burning has been going on for several years, and I have heard in the video that's been mentioned that it's a recent phenomenon. It is not. But in the last 2 years, it became unbearable. It triggered a fire alarm twice in my house in the middle of the night when we had our windows open. When I first reached out to the community director, Ross Crowley, in 2023, he indicated that this issue has been brought up in the past, but it was dismissed by the board. He suggested the petition may work better, which is why this summer several residents signed it because of the burning become so pervasive that we couldn't feel safe in our homes. The board investigated and reported that none of the neighboring areas permit outdoor burning due to these well-documented risks. My question is, why does the Village of Riverwoods allow and not limit an activity that is undeniably harmful to the public health and safety? What I was personally surprised about, when there was an issue with the heating and cooling, and it was actually discussed today again in the Village Hall, that caused inconvenience, it was addressed right away in one hearing because it was directly impacting the board members. I suspect that if people were breathing in carcinogenic air quality in the Village Hall, the board would even address it faster. Members of our community have faced serious health issues such as autoimmune disorders, respiratory conditions, heart disease, and even cancer. Heart issues affected even my own children. Currently, we have virtually no protection. While the nuisance ordinances are in place, and it includes the provision against the offensive odors, it remains unenforced due to conflicting rules permitting burning. Why is one provision more important than the other? The conflict should be addressed and resolved. Lastly, given the substantial taxes we pay and very high median home prices, we should be able to enjoy the outdoors without compromising our well-being. During the warmer months, we face daily anxiety, uncertain if we can actually step out, as some neighbors choose to burn for several days in a row, often 10 to 14 hours at a time. We cannot open our windows. This is at its core a moral issue. The current ordinances prioritize convenience for a few over the health and well-being of many. We implore the board to act. Options such as permits, limiting burning to a couple of days a month, or seasonal windows in spring and fall would represent meaningful compromises. We urge the board to prioritize the health and safety and well-being of the residents of Riverwoods by revisiting the local ordinances. And importantly, please see the additional list of extensive concerns that have been submitted, especially in the last few days, directly in the email by multiple residents who couldn't attend today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Or?
Are there any questions? Apparently not. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board on the topic? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Gail Gand, G-A-L-E, like a gale force, Gand, G-A-N-D. I've lived in Riverwoods almost 30 years now, and I live in the John Schmidt House on Gemini Lane. And I just want to support what Mag has explained to you as a problem, that we have a situation where it seems that people can't really seem to make the right decision for what's best for the community. And I feel that our village needs to put some guardrails on our burning rules, our burning ordinance, since we just sort of can't seem to trust neighbors to do the right thing. So I'm asking the board to consider some parameters for burning. Okay.
Are there any questions or comments for
Right.
Trustee Dickon?
Have a comment, and I've given this a lot of thought, and I just wanted to share that I sympathize with you guys deeply. I had a neighbor who burned his entire deck over the course of several weeks, so it was disastrous, but this was a couple years ago. But maybe there's a different way to skin the cat. I'm assuming that many of you folks belong to an SSA or an HOA. Would it perhaps be reasonable to allow the HOAs or SSAs to restrict the existing ordinance and make it stricter, but locally, and allow all the members of that HOA or that SSA to vote on it? And if you get 60% of the votes, then you create something that you could actually enforce.
Well, the SSAs don't have the authority to do that. That's not what they were set up for. The problem with HOAs in the village, and one of the reasons we have so many SSAs, is that many HOAs do not have adequate enforcement mechanism. So HOAs are formed for a certain purpose. Most of them are formed to take care of the private streets. I don't know if they have the authority to regulate that kind of activity by their members. And I suspect in many cases they don't have the right to enforce those rules. So that's been the problem generally with many HOAs with their streets, that they have turned to the SSA format because they don't have either jurisdiction or they don't have enforcement rights.
Are there any other comments on that? Trustee Eastman, please.
Chris, would it be possible for Chief Kruger to kind of, I know he's expressed in the past, sort of his thoughts on our burn ordinance, but it might be interesting to get his thoughts once again on sort of just broadly, relative to other communities, does Riverwoods fit in? And, given our fire hydrant and water situation, what sort of risk does that pose? I mean, I realize he's not up to speed on probably the nuances of the burn ordinance. It just might be interesting to get sort of his broad input, or if not, at some other point, have him speak on that.
Chief, are you comfortable? Do you want to respond to that now? I don't mean to cut you off. Are you? Okay, thank you.
So what would you like me to start or answer, or?
I think it's more, given that, if I remember correctly, that most of the surrounding communities now, obviously we have, woodlands and we have debris that, some people would like to get rid of by burning, right? But what do you see in terms of, because some of these burns, and I've experienced seeing them, can be fairly extensive. And do you think that that poses, just burning in general, poses some sort of risk, particularly given that you had explained at one point, how difficult it is with, people being on wells and not having fire hydrant hookups? What if something goes wrong during the summer, right? What if we have a very dry period, somebody does a burn and it gets out of control?
Correct. So for our fire district, we cover 4 or 5 different municipalities, all with different burning ordinances, similar to Riverwoods. I believe Lincolnshire doesn't allow fire pits or even recreational fires in their village boundaries, but we have, you have the challenge to try to accommodate everybody. And so that's what when we did our burn ordinance, that's what we kind of did too. So we get called out for when it's either getting out of control or the resident believes that it is going to be out of control and it causes a nuisance. So if we get that complaint, we will advise the homeowner to put it out to a certain limit. So, but we have safeguards in place. They have to have a extinguisher, a hose line, or a garden hose. But anytime you're burning, it's an inherent risk to any home, regardless of whether you're in an urban area or exactly the woods. And like we are now, then you throw in a non-hygienic area, that that increases the risk. I'm not trying to scare anybody, but for us, that's when there's not hydrants around, it is a challenge for us. We have plans already in place that we have other towns coming in with big, like 3,000 gallons of water on their vehicles, that we have 4 or 5 of those coming in certain areas in Riverwoods and up in Matawa and a couple unhydrated areas. But nevertheless, yeah, they're on our cards, response cards, but they might be on our call. And now it's someone fire coming away. So if we don't catch that fire within the first 5 minutes, it can get out of control. So we kind of advise, especially in the summertime, we cringe a little bit, especially when the restoration companies come in. They do a good job with the professionals, but not every homeowner is an expert at fire mitigation. So that adds to the inherent risk. So for me to stay up here saying nobody can do it and we advise against this, we always try to advise against any kind of inherent fire risk. So whether it be open burning, smoke mitigation, but we're also on that business of trying to accommodate every resident, but it's just almost impossible. So
That's helpful. Thank you. And I also appreciate your insight, because I've been thinking about the summer period, right? Like particularly this past summer when it was dry, that as well as the fall probably provides, even though the fall is when you probably would want to burn, but particularly the summer when you have more foliage, I think that's something, again, that we should consider when we're thinking about, what changes do we need to make.
And we've had, when the companies come in to do the prescribed burns, they've called numerous times and it's just too dry, or there's a fire alert usually on the weather statement. But if we deem it's too windy and it's too dry, we will tell them you're not doing it, and they have to abide by that. So we've shut some of them down. They weren't too happy about it, but nevertheless, we have to take that. It's a risk that we're taking. We have to protect the citizens too, so.
For sure. Thank you.
Trustee Hollander.
2 questions.
Sure.
Because you probably have the information we don't. In the last 5 years, do you have an idea of how many of these fires have gotten out of control?
None comes to mind from a structural fire caused by an open burning. None of them come to mind.
And you would be the district that would cover them in this area.
Correct.
So we've had none. My second question is related to the health concerns. I understand that large fires, like in California and others, where they blanket the area, there are significant health concerns. We're talking about individual homes and fires that may be up for 2, 3, 4 hours. Do you have any thoughts on whether or not that represents a significant risk to the health?
I don't think I'm at liberty to I'm not qualified to say whether it's smoke, it's combustion. So it's obviously, it could be hazardous to you, but when you're in an open environment, how much are you getting that? How much is coming in your house? How much are you getting exposed to? It's all relevant to the type of exposure, but we don't see a lot of it. And we don't get a lot of complaints for open burning as much as we used to in the past, but to your question, I can't recall any fires that have happened from an open burning.
Thank you.
Trustee Clayton.
In thinking this through, it strikes me that the issue is not so much the ordinance, the existing ordinances, nuisance or burning ordinances, or any modifications we make to those ordinances, as much as it is an enforcement issue. And it's a difficult question, because I'm totally convinced that if we were to modify the ordinance and enact it exactly the way the residents who are petitioning us to do, we would still have exactly the same problem. Right now, we have ordinance that should have prohibited the burning that they have described next to their property. But we, either on a nuisance basis or in some cases on the size and duration of the fires in the burning ordinance. So I think to some degree, my impression is that our emphasis is misplaced a little bit, worrying about the specific wording of the ordinance and thinking more about no matter what ordinance we put into place, how are we going to enforce it? And do we have the mechanism in place? Because the instances that they have described in the emails and so on violate our current ordinances, but it wasn't enforced. So why is changing the language of the ordinance going to change anything? I think that's what I think we need to, what I think we need to be thinking about is in its entirety, not only the wording of the ordinance, but how we're going to go about enforcing the ordinance once it's modified.
So Trustee Clayton, I think that's a really good point, and that's something that I think we really do need to crack down. And I think some of these local issues probably are enforcement issues. The one thing I would say that I think caused some heartburn for me in the last meeting was, we at one point had put in restrictive language saying you could only burn 2 days a week, the first, Friday or whatever it was. That was probably too restrictive. But is there a compromise on sort of time, place, and manner, like every other day of the week, like alternate days, so that these people that have, it's never going to be perfect in enforcement, but at the very least in the summertime, they know that if I'm going to plan an outdoor activity on a Wednesday, right, and we alternate days of the week or whatever we decide is the right compromise there, where they have some sort of safe harbor where if we can't mitigate the nuisance, that they, can at least have a day or two where they could enjoy their property. I guess that's my only thinking. If we don't have some time, place, or manner restriction, then it's probably a problem.
Trustee Hollander.
I don't think the problem is whether or not you can burn every other day. The problem is that the residents are concerned about any burn, even if it occurs on particular days. The concern is how it affects them as an individual when their neighbor is burning, period. And most people don't think of when they want to go do yard work whether or not this is the right day or not. And when you plan activities, you don't want to seem like you want to restrict the planning to a particular day because it's a day when the neighbor might burn.
But I would argue that
I
would argue that there's municipalities in terms of watering, right? I mean, we have alternate days of the week for watering, right? So that's something,
because it's a different problem.
How so?
When you can water or not water, it's because there was a limitation on the availability of water. There's no limitation on the availability of burning. I mean, we had water restrictions for a period a few years ago when you could only water on odd numbered days when we had water issues. That's a public health issue, which I understand this could be as well. But
what if I suggested 2 days a month seemed very restrictive. Not having any time manner is concerning to some. One issue that would make enforcement simple is to have a defined time, but the defined time should be broad enough that people who don't want to see it unduly restricted. So what, for example, if it said the first 2 weeks of every month? It's basically 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. Very easy to enforce. Lots of time for someone to burn and lots of time for someone to get relief.
I don't have a problem with that, but I think the people who are affected by the heavy burning will be bothered during their first 2 weeks. I think that's the concern they have. It isn't the fact that it's being restricted. The fact is that they don't like the burning when it's done by individuals who are making a problem for their neighbors. We don't have this throughout the village. You have several people who are causing the problem to their neighbors.
I understand that it wouldn't solve every problem, but I would be curious whether in the face of no restriction or a restriction that said the first 2 weeks of every month, they wouldn't at least prefer that.
I have no problem with that.
It does at least accomplish that. And we do have the provision we have here does limit the pile size much more than it did before. And I think that's also could help with enforcement. So that's just a suggestion of a time manner that at least for the police would be easy to enforce and maybe easy for everyone to remember. I don't know what anyone thinks about that, but, I'm always just looking for a middle ground.
Trustee Dickon, please.
Yeah, what if we also added to that the amount of time that you could burn on any given day, not to exceed, as we've discussed, X number of hours? And this is something that can be validated, where a neighbor takes a photo, that's timestamp, thank you, Randy. And then they take another photo where it exceeds a certain timestamp, and hence you have some enforcement options. Thoughts on that?
Does if you have a lot of stuff that you want to get rid of, I don't think we can have that picked up, can we? I mean, you've got a pile of debris that you want to get rid of, and burning would be the actual way. LRS allows a pickup once a month or something, or does it not allow at all? Can you put out a lot of woodland debris for them to be picked up as garbage? I don't think so.
Not for free.
So what do you do with this?
Well, you arrange to have it picked up yourself by landscapers or whatever. Christy Sherman, I think you've got a comment on that point.
Let me just say,
Please come
I will
forward.
look into that with Lakeshore to see what their policy is on that. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but I can look into that.
Okay, the microphone's important to recording, so please. Thank you, Chief.
While we're waiting for Christie, is it possible for all the trustees to see these emails that are in question? I haven't seen it.
Can you work on this morning?
They were forwarded today, and some of the email addresses were corrected and then re-forwarded. You might.
You know where it came from?
I'll
Meg.
forward this to you, Meg.
Thank you.
Meg Redalewski. Yeah, Christy
So
Sherman,
pe-
please.
People are burning leaves, right? And what else are they burning?
Twigs.
Logs?
Landscape waste.
Okay, so leaves are good for mulch. I mean, I'm thinking, what are they burning? And what are other ways from an educational standpoint? I mean, I would love somebody's leaves. And I know that
The RPC put out an article a bit ago, yes.
But even the logs, there are things we can do and get creative if people want to remove things. I think there's let's say buckthorn and you're removing it, right? Part of maybe the cost share or whatever is that the village removes some of it. So I don't even think it's, burn or not burn. If it's a prescribed burn, that's different. Or if there's some restoration, that's different. But it seems to me that maybe we could get creative with some other, through education and finding out the interest of the rest of the community. I mean, you can take these logs, this may sound silly, but you can drill a hole in the logs and leave them in areas, and it's great for animals. So granted, somebody's going to have a ton of logs, and some people may have to have their stuff removed. But I think the health issue is because I know we have one neighbor that I could drive into our community and be 2 blocks down, and there's just all this smoke everywhere. It doesn't happen often to us, but I can imagine like in areas that it does, how disturbing it would be, and from a health concern. But I just think maybe we could get creative. Like, what are they burning? What can we do with what they're burning productively, right? So just in thought.
Randy Yaffe, I think you had a comment.
So we could talk about this all night, but you obviously want to try to get something resolved. So to me, the difference is between if it's recreational, you're not going to be able to stop it. It's easy to put some kind of, governors on it saying, hey, it can only be so, so big or whatever it's going to be. Because most people that I'm assuming that are having fires in their backyard, that's not going to go over well if the city says, hey, you can't do that. And I don't think that's what you're trying to do.
It actually is, because we actually prohibit that except with a permit in this ordinance.
So just to have if you have a gas,
inside a contained structure or.
No, I'm talking about outside. If you have an outside that's gas logs, so that's precluded. You can't do that.
No, that's allowed.
Okay, so maybe to try to appease everybody, you'd say if it's recreational within a certain amount of size, it would be allowed to burn anytime you want. If you have people in your backyard and you have something that's controlled and small, I don't see anything wrong with that. If the problem is if there's a storm and you have a lot of refuge, whatever it is, what do you do with it? So if it's not for recreational and it's just to get rid of it. So my son happens to live in Highland Park, which I think is really cool what they do. I think it's once or twice a year, they have a program for the garbage where if they just want to get rid of, you want to get rid of a bathtub, you want to get rid of a dishwasher, you just put out in front of your house and they will take that at no cost. So now this is a little bit different, obviously, but it is still a service that they give. And I think it's unique. And what happens, people put all this stuff out and you have all these people that come around for junk and they pick it up and they take it because they want to do it for, just for scrap. So let's say you put that into the wood and say maybe once a month there's a day you assign that you just want to get rid of, like all the stuff you collected, whether it's logs or whatever, put it off to the side. And maybe it's a service. I'm not sure what that would cost. Is it something that the village would maybe eat? I'm assuming it can't be that much. And even if they were collect that, there's got to be some kind of value to the wood that you're picking it up. So it's just something maybe you think of if it's not recreational. And you say, how do you control it? You got to put something out and say, hey, listen, if you get caught, if it's over a certain size that you're burning in your backyard, you're going to have a citation. People are, fireworks aren't legal either, but if I know there's nothing's going to happen, people blow them off. But if I know that the Riverwoods is like very strict and they're going to come in your house and they're going to give you a citation, then it precludes you from doing it. You're not going to do it. Maybe it's a weak analogy, but to say that come out and say, hey, there's going to be a citation if you do this recreationally over a certain amount, and then at least everybody knows where it is. From getting rid of it, hey, once a week, or once a month, there's going to be a day set aside that all the stuff you want to collect and you want to cut down your trees, bring it to the front or whatever you're going to do, and we're going to have a service that's going to come and drag this stuff away. It might be enough to appease everybody. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Laura, L-O-R-A, Millman, M-I-L-L-M-A-N. And I would really appreciate it if someone really did contact LRS and look into what it would be like to collect landscape waste for our community. And if people would be interested in having the landscape waste collected, because if that were the situation, then maybe we wouldn't need to have any burn. The burn ordinance would be you can't burn unless it's a prescribed burn. And then that would be easy to enforce because we're not allowing people to burn their leaves. Okay. And the leaves and many of these things are healthy for our environment. Burning creates greenhouse gases. And here's the thing. We're supposed to be a community that wants to preserve an environment and not destroy our environment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I believe to answer the question about LRS, you can have them pick up your yard waste today. I think it's just that some people are choosing not to do that.
It's $30 per pickup every Wednesday. They won't pick up logs. They'll pick up a container of leaves.
Yeah.
You can't.
Well, it can't be a tree.
So, yeah, it's not logging.
Well, not a whole tree, I meant.
It's not logging. I mean, you can't.
But I think the point is,
Right.
the point I'm trying to make, is that people can do it today. People choose not to. And that's, I think, the reason for the ordinance is to try and control what people are doing. And I'm not saying not rightly so. I'm just saying I think that's the point, is so that people can't just burn a tree.
Yeah. Trustee Dickon, did you
I
have something?
wanted to piggyback on something that Randy said. The village of Lincolnshire has a truck that goes around all the streets and they collect leaves. So you as a resident, you could blow all of your leaves up to the street and they'll pick them up. I know I've brought this up before. This was years ago. And I believe the Director of Community Services said that the trucks are too wide, that they wouldn't be able to turn around. But, the LRS trucks are wide. They turn around, they figure out a way. So I think this is doable. Maybe this is something we look into. We have a much bigger leaves issue than Lincolnshire does. But I think this
Certain parts of our neighborhoods, yes.
Certain parts of our neighborhood, right? But maybe this is something that could help solve this overall issue. Because I think leaves are what creates the majority of the smoke.
No, it's not.
No?
I think the issue is the trees, though. The
Unseasoned green trees, yeah.
I don't think it's the leaves that's probably the issue.
Yeah.
Would be my guess.
Meg, do you want to
Yeah, just one more thing.
Sure.
Just to clarify, I also wanted to mention, because we have reported the fires multiple times, and it was to the police, not to the fire chief and the team. So I just wanted to make sure it's probably to happen across all of us. It got scary, and it was not breathable, and the sizes of the burn were just unreal. And it probably was at least 10 to 12 times. And recently, I want to say, I think Elise Powers and Michael Powers reached out, I think, to the board and said that within the last month, no, November probably, there was such a significant fire that they actually got so scared about their newborn baby that they called the chief, the fire and team. And what happened is they essentially said, unless the forest is on fire, please don't call us. That was the response. So I want to be clear that it's not an issue, and it started to happen through social contagion with multiple different households. So even the new people that are moving in, which is frightening, within a month or two, they started to burn as well because they see nothing is being done with, a couple of the neighbors that have been abusing the burning ordinance for quite some time now.
Mayor,
Trustee Hollander, please.
if you'll give me a moment, I would read this. According from LRS, available from April 1st to December 15th, LRS, that's our recycling, provides a simple option for landscape waste collection. It's collected on Wednesdays at the street side, and it offers two services. One is a subscription, which is a flat monthly rate, and the second one is by a sticker, which is done on a per collection rate. On the subscription service, it covers up to 10 35-gallon containers, and on the sticker rate, it's done by how much you give them. So our service does pick up landscape waste, and you can either do it if you have a lot monthly, or you can do it on a per episode basis.
I can add to that because I was able to find the contract while we were talking. If the landscape waste cannot reasonably be placed in bags or cans, it can be securely tied with biodegradable string or twine in bundles not to exceed 4 feet in length, 24 inches in diameter, and 50 pounds in weight. That's what and they also pick up Christmas trees.
Wow. So those are logs.
Well,
kind of. Well, 50
Christmas
pounds. That'd be little chunks of logs. That's interesting. So how do you make people do that, though? How do you make them call LLRS? So there's your enforcement issue. I'm sorry, say again. Yeah. You make the alternative. So again, we've got a proposal in front of us. We can take a step back and try to add some restrictions to it. Time, place, manner. We can try to add some enforcement teeth and make it easier for our officers to enforce.
Well, one question was whether if we said the first 2 weeks of a month, is that an improvement enough or not? Well.
And just to clarify, if that's what's going to be allowed, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
We have experience with these neighbors now over the last 3-4 years. If that's what's going to be allowed, that's what's going to be taken, meaning they'll start at 7 in the morning and finish, at 7 at night. I mean, that's just every day.
So in the spirit of compromise, a neighbor like that is somebody that we may have to deal with outside of the confines just of a general ordinance. That may just be one of those situations, but if you're talking about village health and balancing these interests as as a community as a whole, 2 days a month was too restrictive. There wasn't enough board support for that. So I'm looking for something workable.
I mean, restricting to the hours, I mean, I don't imagine that there is going to be, a need to burn for 12 hours straight, technically speaking.
Well, it said sunrise to sunset in the current draft, which is less than 12 hours in the winter.
But in the summer, it could be 16 hours, right? I
Okay,
mean,
well, that's a minor detail, but just in terms of the total amount of time, I'm just looking for an off-ramp here.
I think it'd be, something that would be incentive for the people to potentially use the LRS program and not, I mean, we have landscapers, and they pick up everything and it's just sort of included and clearly others
May
don't.
I, there's someone there who's had her hand up here for a while.
Hi,
Anyway,
I'm
and-
Janine Gray, Gray. Janine, I've lived here for 21 years. This is a new problem as far as I can tell in terms of burning from morning to night. I have a lot of wood on my property and leaves, and I can't imagine burning anything from morning to night, days on end. What are these people burning? Are they in construction? Are they taking home garbage from their construction sites and bringing them to their home to burn from morning to night? Like, this is a much bigger problem. This is like a bad neighbor, but I don't think it's every neighbor. I think it is a few really bad apples. So to toss out people being able to do a bonfire every once in a while for 2 or 3 hours on a nice, cool summer evening, that's like, shooting a mosquito with a gun. Like, why not look at these people who are taking advantage? If they can burn morning to night, sunrise to sunset for days on end, we have a big problem. Where are they getting all this stuff? I mean, you got to run out eventually, or you're bringing it in. You're bringing it in from somewhere. And there's a lot of people who live in Riverwoods who are in construction. So I'm proposing that this is a bigger thing than just somebody doing landscaping work. And they're not going to go along with this. So look at what they're burning. No one should be burning from morning till night. Someone can burn for a couple hours and they should be sitting there with a hose, watching what they're doing and then putting it out, because that's just rude. I mean, we all live here because we love the woods and we love being outside. And if you can't go outside in your own house ever, that's just wrong. A bonfire for a couple hours shouldn't affect anybody. But when it's morning to night, day in, day out, somebody's up to something and it's no good. And if they're that rude and they don't care about people's babies and people setting off people's smoke alarms, that's a big problem. They should be fined. It should never be allowed. And I don't understand why it's so complicated. We're in a little community that maybe we want to enjoy a bonfire, but we don't need to burn all day, day in and day out, and it should never be acceptable. I don't know, that's not the community I moved into, and that's not the people that I mostly know here, so it's an exception. And yes, those people should be taken to task and fined for this type of behavior.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve
Trustee
the
Hess.
ordinance as written.
Is there a second? He has moved the approval, trustee has moved the approval of the ordinance that's in our packet. Is there a second?
Can you read it out?
And then I will ask for another comment. Is there a second to that? Okay, dies for lack of a second. Julie, did you have a comment?
Julie Favaro. Yeah, I want to second Janine here. I was thinking, where are all these trees coming from? Because, so I kind of feel like maybe there's a way we can solve the problem through other channels than just the burn ordinance, because this is an enforcement problem. So I think we should explore where all these trees are coming from and see if there's other angles here to fix the bad apples, so that it doesn't negatively impact the people that do want to do a bonfire or burn a pile of leaves for a half an hour to throw some grass seed. So
I think we have something to work with. If I could meet afterwards and get some specifics, I would like to meet then with our Director of Community Services and our Chief and see what we can do. It died for lack of a second, so we'll move on to our committee reports. And first on the committee reports is the Finance and Economic Development Committee. Trustee Clayton.
No report.
Okay, Communications, Trustee Dickin.
Yes. I've been speaking to a bunch of folks over the last couple of weeks, and something interesting was brought up that when people receive our electronic newsletter, they were not realizing that the agenda for the Board of Trustees meetings was actually embedded inside the meeting links. So they saw that there was a meeting on a certain date, but they never bothered to click on it to see that there's an agenda. So you'll be seeing a little blurb in all of the newsletters saying that the agenda has been posted, and you can click here to see the agenda. Also on top of that, we've got a couple of things you'll be seeing in the mail. Recently, you've seen an alarm registration postcard for the police department that has a QR code. Our quarterly postcard is going out and should be in your mailboxes sometimes this week. This is a postcard that has a bunch of little QR codes that won't expire. So if at any given point in time you want to visit something on the cost share program or something on, you want to pull up a permit application or see our news or what's on our calendar, you scan any of those QR codes and it will be the most relevant, up-to-date information that's available. So save those, stick them on your fridge or keep them somewhere around because those are relevant. And then we've got a land use survey. You've probably seen something in the newsletter. Trustee Clayton and Trustee Hollander are working on a land use survey. A link is in the newsletter, and hopefully we'll have a postcard going out sometime soon as well.
Are there any questions for our communications trustee? Beyond woodlands and ecology and legal, trustee Eastman, please.
Nothing to report.
Okay. Land use and roads, trustee Hollander.
No report.
Okay. Building and utilities, trustee Jamerson is not here. His report is in the packet. Community services, trustee Smith, please.
Yeah, sure. So thank you. Just before the holidays, we met with a couple of Riverwoods residents that wanted to start kind of a game day primarily for senior citizens here at Village Hall. We met with council, that's been approved. So that will be kicking off in January, starting off on Wednesdays, twice a week. I think that was also in the newsletter, or actually there's a flyer on the website. So I think we're set there. So that's really positive, trying to use the Village Hall for the benefit of all residents. And then the other thing that had come up shortly, maybe around Thanksgiving, certainly at the Board of Trustee meeting, maybe in November, was that there's some concern about the Hefty Renew program. I was in contact with LRS. LRS has stated they've now trained their drivers. I don't know if they were initially not trained or I don't know. I'm just telling you what they told me. But anyways, I've been assured that they now know what to do with those orange bags and that will be appropriately done going forward. So I think that's hopefully, once again, if anybody tells me different, I will certainly relay that back to LRS if they're not doing that. But I think hopefully that's solved. And the other thing is that I did want to state that we do have Hefty Renew sample kits here at Village Hall. You can come and collect them if you'd like. We got maybe 30 or 40 left. I can order more. So we've got some facilities to people. Christy, do you have a question? Oh, Hefty Renew. Sorry, it's the orange bags. There's been a fair amount of press about it. Deerfield's doing it. Riverwoods is doing it. Lincolnshire. Essentially, it's for those hard to recycle items that you would have been forced to throw away before.
Plastic bags. But can I make sure they're doing it before we advertise it?
Huh?
Because the thought of all that ending up in the landfill makes my stomach sick. So I will watch and see if they do it.
Well, you're the one who told me about it initially. So.
How are you going to? How are you going to do that?
We should be hesitant about advertising it until we know they're going to do their job.
I guess, yeah, I guess, Julie, my perspective is we should assume that they're going to do what they've told us they're going to do, and that if they don't do that, we should then take them to task.
Gail, did you have a comment? Question?
We have to talk into the microphone.
Oh, you have to talk in the microphone.
Nobody cares what you said.
It's Gail Gand again. I just have a question about the game afternoon. So going back a step, why are you calling it senior?
That's right.
Because that's who proposed it.
Because that's how it was proposed to us. It's really targeted at.
No, it's not.
It wasn't you.
It wasn't you.
game, Jay.
I apologize if I said that inappropriately. It's targeted for residents 55 plus. But it doesn't have to be.
So if you're 45.
What I
You'll
just-
be welcome. Nobody's checking IDs.
What I just
No,
said
but
was,
I'm just-
that's who it's targeted to, but if you want to attend, please attend.
I will be there, but I'm just wondering if you're trying to build community, why we're putting an age description on it. And that maybe that discourages some adults. My husband's
proposal.
not a senior.
Or my college age student,
may I add?
child from attending.
I don't know.
Yeah, why are we?
May I
I mean, Gail, it's a really good perspective. It was proposed to us as a senior thing, but the reality is it's really open to any Village of Riverwoods resident, and quite honestly, even non-residents. We're
So
targeting residents,
You
but it
might
could
want
be
to think
any-
about rebranding it
Yeah,
as
no, it's a good point.
community. You know, there are plenty of people out there who are free during the day that are in their 40s.
It's a good point.
That's an excellent point. We had two residents who are very interested in starting this. They came to us, they asked if we could, if we could accommodate that. And we listened to them and said
Yeah,
yes.
and isn't she one of them?
No.
She was not?
No. Cheryl Rue Borden and Pam Anderson.
Yeah.
And they participate in game days other places and
Right.
thought it would be great to bring it home.
Yep.
So that's how that started. And if it morphs into something else, how lovely. But those two residents are taking the lead here. And they will be here and they are contacting their
I
network.
know, I was with
to-
Cheryl on Friday, I know.
Yeah.
But I just
There
don't
you go.
understand why it's focused on seniors exclusively.
them.
Okay.
That's true.
You don't want to say adult game.
That sounds, excellent point.
It's all about
Trustee
marketing.
Clayton, did you have a comment? I thought you might have raised your hand. No? Okay. Sure, come on.
What the heck? It's a free-for-all. Randy Merrill again.
Loosely under control.
There you go.
There we go.
We are going to try to get a webinar on the calendar for January with Swalco, and I'd like to invite Bill Kenny from LRS and talk about the orange bag, and it might be great to do that.
He's the one that I spoke with.
Yeah, he's been my contact for things, and he's participated in all of our webinars in the past, so
yeah,
hopefully that'll be good.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
That's
Sorry
it.
if I stepped on your lines.
No.
Okay. All right.
All good.
Are there any other comments or questions for our community services trustee? Okay. Moving on, sustainability and climate action, Chairs Brightcoff and Rivaro. Do you have a report, please?
You can make it funny, I suppose.
The sustainability plan is being written and it should be done by the end of the month. So you'll be happy to hear that we'll probably be in March to present to the board. And I'm hopeful that we'll actually have a plan to the board by sometime in February, but it won't be, but we thought we'd maybe have it drafted by now, but the holidays and Lori going to Cuba and stuff.
Really?
And the other thing is I think we've found a date that we want to do the birthday party for Earth. And so the task force and the RPC, we thought it would be a collaboration party. And we were thinking maybe April the 26th, if that would work in terms of using the villages.
I'll check, but it
grounds.
sounds, yeah.
And then I was going to ask anybody on the board, I'm hoping it to be an opportunity for us to invite conservationists in the local area to come and table. So if there's any local organizations that you would like to be included, please let me know so that we can invite them.
University of Illinois has a,
Yeah, I was going to reach out to the University of Illinois, Open Lands, the County Forest Preserve. I was hoping maybe we could get an educator from there to come and maybe do
with Danny.
something on wetlands or converting lawn, something fun, and then do their buckthorn signs. So they're already on my list, but if there's any others, please let us know. The Botanical Garden might be a good one, but
I thought you had told me about Morton having educational programs that were available.
Morton does have educational programs that are available.
They do a lot with oak trees. Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be a group that we could have come out and talk about. So that would be a great one to put on the list.
Just in terms of planning, can I ask you again? When do you think you might want to come to the board with your plan? Is it too
How
premature? Or
How about the first board meeting in March?
how about if I just put March and that'll give you a little leeway?
That works.
Okay, no, again, planning and so on. We've got a pretty full February, but.
Anything to add?
Actually, the sustainability plan is coming along really well. Julie's done a nice job with the draft, so it's coming along very well. I think we'll make that date for sure.
Oh, for sure.
We are meeting again tomorrow night at 7 p.m., the Sustainability Task Force. So 7 till 8:30 tomorrow night.
Everybody's welcome.
Public is invited.
Here, right?
At the Village Hall.
Okay. Are there any questions for our chairs? Thank you very much. And strategic land use, trustees Clayton and Hollander, please.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to apologize for the late distribution of the committee's report. Sadly, life got in the way and we were a little delayed in getting it out. I just wanted to bring the board up to speed as to where we are. In addition to approving the committee's formation, the board now has seen the survey and has seen the mailings we want to do to promote the survey and has had a chance to respond to all of that. We are at this point launched the survey. It was published in the e-newsletter, and now we need to follow up with the remaining outreach programs. We've laid out again the purpose of the survey. We're trying to measure demand for functions and activities that the residents believe are priorities. In terms of step one, we've been through just about all of step one in terms of our funding. Of the $5,000 that we had approved, $4,000 of that has gone to TSCA, and the remainder now is set aside for the outreach programs to answer the survey. Once we have passed the deadline for the survey, then we want to go on to steps 2 and 3. And we've outlined what TSCA will do primarily once we get to that step. Primarily, they will summarize the results of the survey and prepare a matrix expressing the high priority uses of the public lands identified in the survey. And then we're going to sit down and take the demand function and look at then the supply function in terms of what lands are available and what the characteristics of those lands are, and see what we can do to marry those into 3 different levels of strategy. One sort of a minimal approach, one sort of a mid-level common approach, and one an enhanced approach. And all of the steps 2 and 3 have a high degree of board involvement and the involvement of the Director of Community Services. We've tried to involve the senior staff only after the groundwork has been done. So we think if we have a whole bunch of information pulled together, that would be the time to move forward with that. We wanted to try to get the approval for the steps 2 and 3 funding of $10,000. That's $4,000, $8,000 for TSCA and $2,000 for other follow-up expenses to the survey. But we wanted to do that. It didn't get on the agenda for tonight's meeting, so I wanted to put it on the agenda, ask that it be put on the agenda for the next meeting. I know that many of the boards, several of the board members aren't going to be here for that meeting, so I wanted to get a sense of the board. Henry and I wanted to get a sense of the board to find out whether or not you had any issue with us trying to get that on the agenda for the next meeting and having it approved then. The information gathered at this point is not only in terms of the existing open lands and undeveloped lands that the village has now, but we also believe that the information gathered could better inform the village during the conversations with developers on what our residents might like in future land use, such as on the 37 acres Discover and Walters Kluwer. So my request at this point is to try to get a sense of the board as to whether we can bring this up for approval at the next meeting. Everybody's comfortable with that.
Just,
Hollander,
just
yeah.
to put maybe a finer point on it, the discussions, for example, with Walters Kluwer, if they progress, they're going to move fairly quickly as relates to how quickly the board can move. And the village is probably going to ask for something, some land set aside, some things that help the village residents, something that they may want that's going to be part of the discussions when they come to us. And this is helpful to know what the residents want. If the residents want more gardens that they can use to plant, if they want a pickleball court, if they want a walking path, we don't know. But if we have that information of what is important to our residents, we then can use that when we discuss this with developers, as well as what's available now on open lands. If we don't have it, we will never be able to get it in time for those discussions whenever they occur. And I think what we're doing is we're asking the board members to give us an idea now whether or not they would like to approve additional funding, even though it's not being voted on today, but at least give their thoughts on it so that at the next board meeting, where some of us may not be there, we don't feel like we're usurping that authority.
I guess I would raise the point that I have no issue with what you've laid out. My only concern would be that what do we do if, you're asking for the additional $10,000? It's all dependent on sort of a robust survey response. Would it make more sense to sort of see what we get in terms of survey results and then have that discussion? I don't know how long you anticipate it being before we get.
If we don't get good survey results, we won't have steps 2 and 3 because we won't have the information to act on. So you sort of have to trust that if we don't get the information, we're not going to be able to do much with it.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
If you have a quorum next time, I don't think, if you're pro tem, I don't think you get to vote.
No, I think
you
I
do?
do. Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. If he's pro tem and he gets to vote, but I don't get to vote? What is
It's the power of the pro tem.
Really?
But we just need, well, we have, besides pro tem, we have 3 trustees, so we'll have 4. We'll have at least a quorum of 4.
That's the plan right now, because I know
Okay,
Henry will be out, I'm out, and so is Rick.
Even the mayor could vote if there were only 3 in order to authorize an expenditure.
Is that right?
So can our other board members pipe in and tell us whether or not they think that this is reasonable or not? Okay, got it.
Okay, put it on the agenda for the.
Thank you. And we'd like to get the, excuse me, the staff moving on mailing out the postcards
Yeah,
and stuff.
we
Is
can do
fine?
that. We
Okay,
can do that.
thanks.
All right, seeing no issue to go into executive session at this point, the time and place for the next meeting, right here, 7:30, January 21, and we think we've got a quorum. So with that, could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned. Thank you.